Good morning, everyone. Wool Talks here at Dutch Design Week. How are we feeling? Yes, energy is good. As always, I'm your host, Haiko. I will be guiding the conversation. And we have a theme for every day that we try to uncover. Today it's understanding talent development. So we always try to center the conversation around a question that we try to answer. And for this morning, it is, why are emerging design talents crucial for the future of fashion and textiles? And how can we strengthen the ecosystems that support them? And for answering this question, I invited three experts to the panel. Tessa, first of all, you are working in Prato. Welcome, Tessa. Nice to have you. Could you explain in a few sentences what you do at Lottozero and in Prato when it comes to talents?
Yes. Lottozero is a center for textile art, design, and fashion. And we have a lab for experimentation. We have common studios, and we also have an exhibition space. But I would say our real strength is in the relationship with the Prato Textile District. It's not very famous around here. So Prato is the biggest textile district of Europe currently. We have around 6,000 companies still working in fashion and textiles. And our main job is helping young designers access these companies and get to know the companies.
So Prato, underrated place in Europe where there's a lot of knowledge. Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. Frank, welcome at Nieuwe Instituut. What is your role at Nieuwe Instituut today?
I work as a program manager at Nieuwe Instituut. For those who don't know, Nieuwe Instituut is the National Museum for Architecture, Design and Digital Culture. We're based in Rotterdam. I work for a department called Agency. The goal of Agency is to establish connections and collaborations with Netherlands-based designers and practices and abroad. It can be super diverse. We recently, for example, curated the cultural program for the World Expo in Osaka. For the last year, I've been working on the Dutch contribution to the Venice Architecture Biennale. So it's quite broad, but I think, there's always essentials there in talent development, which I also used to do here at New Order. Yeah.
And just in a broader area of different disciplines.
Exactly, a bit of a zoom out.
Yeah. Mariette, we might know you from House of Denim, but also your own label, your own service. Could you explain in a few sentences how you're involved with talent development?
Okay, I'm Mariette Hoitink, and I'm a matchmaker at heart. I run an agency, it's called HTNK. It's a matchmaking agency, and I do a lot for talent. I think you can run a business, and next to that, you should always give something back to the next generation. One of the examples is Lichting, the show for the best graduates of all the academies of art. It's a concept which I started 19 years ago. Next year we have 20 years, which is unique because there's no concept in Holland which has an archive and plus also the contacts with all these designers for 20 years next year. So we have to celebrate this big. If you want to follow it, Lichting NL is the Instagram. And next to that, I run House of Denim, which is a not-for-profit foundation in Amsterdam. We started this 16 years ago because we thought there should be an end to the race in fast fashion and we should value product more. Denim is a very interesting industry because it's perceived as very dirty, but we can make this sustainable because the people who are in the supply chain, we should see them as a value chain, and since we don't do that, they're not able to have all the innovations in the market. And the focus on talent there is that we have a location, it's called Denim City in Amsterdam. And that's like a denim innovation hub where we have a store where you can buy sustainable circular jeans, where you can book courses to make your own jeans, where we have an archive with unique pieces from all over the world. We have a library and a school, Jean School, the only school in the world where you are educated to become a denim designer and developer based on sustainability, circularity, innovation, craftsmanship, and creativity. Yeah. That's a lot. And it's all done with talents. That's why it's so interesting. It's not a huge organization. You get them to work at the location.
Many things to continue on, of course. Maybe before we do a quick mention that one of the looks we have in the lab today was also part of the Lichting this year.
Yes.
So Eva Popa's design here.
Yeah, she's a finalist, yeah. We have every year over 100 designers graduating at the Academies of Art, so it's a lot. And then in the final selection, we get from 100 to 25. They come in front of a jury. And then the final 10 get a show at Fashion Week, and the winner gets a show the year after. She was one of the finalists.
Yeah, and I also hear a lot of specialized knowledge about denim and getting everything in the same place where you can truly, if you want to specialize in denim design, then that's what you're facilitating at House.
We have a lab. Yeah. And it's a denim innovation lab in a sense that we don't show the dirty stuff because it's not necessary. And you only focus on what can be done in the most sustainable way. So if you want to bleach denim, you can use ozone. If you want to have whiskers, you can use laser. These techniques are already out there in the industry. Even luxury brands are not ordering jeans in the most sustainable way, which they could, because they charge you for the real serious price.
I think that's already a good introduction to what we talk about more, especially if we start looking at what does it take to support talents and what kind of environment do we need to give them. But I briefly want to go back to Tessa and Lottozero. This is an actual image of the neighborhood that you're located, if I'm correct. To elaborate a bit more on that textile district in Prato, and it's close to Florence, of course, but like, how did it came to be? How old is it? What is happening there?
Yes, the Prato Textile District was obviously one of the oldest districts. Anywhere where you had water, you had some kind of production. We always had textile production, even in the past. It was for the popes. But the boom and what Prato was mainly known for came in right after World War II, and it came through the Marshall Plan. And the Marshall Plan was bringing to Europe all kinds of second-hand clothes from the United States. And at the time, it was quality clothes. In Prato, they were very smart, entrepreneurial, but they didn't have raw materials. So they decided we'll focus on recycling wool. And at the time, the wool was of highest quality. And so they started, they're called the stracchini, so literally the people ripping up rags. They started dividing the fabrics in colors and ripping them up, all the different buttons, anything you cannot recycle. What's so funny about it too is that at the time, and I think it's still true nowadays, you could keep anything that you would find in these items, and people would find gold, would find even money sewn into the... Yeah. So some people became... There's one famous story, one guy that found so much money, he then opened his own factory with the money. Yes, at the time Italy was very poor, the United States was very rich. But this was hidden for so many years. And when I say so many years, is we started in 2014, we opened our space in 2016. And even at the time, this was hidden. And people did not talk about how much wool is actually already recycled because it was something shameful. It was a low quality. It was not something great and amazing and circular like it is nowadays. Nowadays, it's starting to be more interesting. Designers love it. They want to come. They want to visit. And now we have the problem that we have nothing to recycle, right? Because obviously you can only recycle the highest quality woolen products. But the process is still there. It's amazing. You don't need to dye. The colors are made. You can go where we have the workshop set up and you see color cards of recycled wool. So you can have a consistent color thanks to the know-how of the district. Nowadays, it's not wool recycling only anymore. There's really every part of the supply chain apart from the raw material. We decided there's no better place to bring designers, show them how things are done, show them how they can still do things in Europe sustainably. Obviously, it's not all perfect. We have sweatshops there as well. You know, you have to be careful. You have to go and check and look with your eyes what's going on. But in Prato, you can do it. It's one flight away from Eindhoven, not a very long one either.
Or a train.
There used to be a train, and then I think with COVID and with the whole thing fell down in the Monte Bianco area. So maybe there will be one again soon.
And you also briefly mentioned that recycling wool is an issue because there's not enough feedstock coming into the recycling process. Like the quality of wool degraded over the last few decades you were referring to? Yes, yeah.
I think a lot of people know this. We've been talking about it. Obviously, if people buy polyester sweaters, that's not something you can recycle. The quality of fast fashion, when they tell you, oh, bring it back, we'll recycle it, I'm very doubtful about that. Yeah. Whereas the clothes we thankfully still have now, a lot of them, we have a sorting facility just close to Lottozero. We bring a lot of people there. And when we bring young people there, they want to take the clothes and they want to wear them. That's how nice they are. But this is not going to happen, and it's going much faster than we think. So in the future, this is not going to happen.
Okay. I also, before we go to Frank at the Nieuwe Instituut, some images of the lab. Like what facilities do you have and what kind of programs do you offer your talents?
We always say we have everything to create prototypes prototypes that then you can recreate with the industry. We don't have any big machinery because we have such huge industry around us. So anything that you can create industrially, we will find the right partner. We see the district as our extended lab. We have the TC2, we have the Hilo that I know you also have in love, and the Feldloom. On our website, we have all the lists of machines, a lot of very cool machines.
But I think it's super interesting that you are like observing the area you're located as an extension of the lab, because I think that's quite unique to what your lab does.
Yes, there's so many as creative hubs that do fashion and textiles all over Europe. And I think we all complement each other, and our specific strength is this extended lab that we have. And the people we know, because that always, in the future, that's going to be everyone's only straight, is the connections we have. So this is our connection.
Nice. And maybe Frank, Mariette, to reflect a bit, like what are some elements you might recognize in the Lottozero story that you also see at House of Denim or at Nieuwe Instituut?
Yeah, I think the nice thing is that people in fashion know Prato, because it used to be super famous, and it's also for the good quality. And I think it's nice to see that it's a lot about recycling, and you're facing the same problems as we do. At the same time, you have an industry and you have fourth generation companies there, which is a difference. We don't have any heritage here in Holland. We're like the new kids on the block. We say we have the textile industry, but it's such a long time ago. They're trying to revive it, but it's never going to be the same as the fourth generation companies. I think your heritage makes it interesting. At the same time, we have a godfather of denim. His name is Adriano Goldschmidt. Yeah. He's behind all the Italian brands everyone is wearing. Adriano is the guy. They think Renzo Rosso is the one who started Diesel. No, it's Adriano. So he's really our godfather. When we started Denim City in Amsterdam, he said, please go, because Italy is sleeping. And he's right, because the thing is that if you have the heritage, you also, a lot of people don't realize that you can lose this, and they lose it to China. And since we are so aware of, no, we have to find our place in this thing, because I thought it was super weird. Denim also, in Italy, you have Denim Valley in the north. They should be the ones doing this, but they did not, because they are actually not paying attention the way we are. Plus, it's easier in Holland to connect all the dots worldwide. That's the thing.
Heritage is also something we came across in our talk yesterday when Claudia Jongstra with Loads Collection was here, and she brought a bag of indigo dyed wool from a place that was doing indigo dyeing for 22 generations in Japan. Talk about heritage. And maybe that's something we can all learn from and build up as we move into the future. Frank, are there some elements you are recognizing within the Nieuwe Instituut that you also heard from Tessa's story?
I do. We're not a lab, we're a museum. We do call ourselves a testing ground, so we try to not just show things that are finished or concluded, but things that are in progress. And what I appreciate about both of your initiatives, and I think that's also something that resonates at Nieuwe Instituut, specifically when it comes to the fashion and textile focus, is letting go of this obsession with newness and coming up with another sort of fashion utopia that's never going to happen. And I think, one of the most innovative things you can do is actually look back at the knowledge that's already there, bring that to the surface, because it's always mind-blowing to me that some of this knowledge has been around for centuries, and even students who graduate in fashion or textiles don't know about it. That can at times be quite frustrating, but I think it's also a collective responsibility to bring that knowledge together and find different ways of communicating it. There are many different ways, and some will resonate with some and some won't.
We have an image here of the outside of the museum, but what happens on the inside? What kind of projects do you work with within the Nieuwe Instituut with those talents?
It's very diverse. Sometimes when I tell people, like, yeah, we're at Nieuwe Instituut, people are like, oh, there's so many things happening. That's true. It's a bit of a hybrid. We also take care of the National Collections for Architecture. So it's a huge responsibility for Nieuwe Instituut. We have exhibitions internally at our own museum, but luckily also through agency, the department I work for, we have the privilege to present abroad and to contextualize the work elsewhere. And I think the next slide also that you have in here, it's New Store. It's a multi-year research project we've been working on. It started as the idea of trying to find a way to not having a museum shop with keychains or tea towels. We wanted to think, like, what can we actually bring into a museum shop that's a bit more regenerative? The project looks into different ways of exchange and consumption. In addition to a store at the Nieuwe Instituut, we position ourselves within some of the biggest design weeks and present production loops. This one, for example, is Atelier Néerlandais. It's a project space of the Dutch Embassy in Paris. What we showed here was a regenerative production loop. We invited some of the people, former talent of New Order, Cloudy, that you saw yesterday, together with her son Jesk, Float Collection. And also because of the local importance, we worked with Collective Tricolore. That's an organization in France that's trying to revive the wool industry. In many countries, sheep farming is mostly aimed at meat and milk. And I think it's really important to, and I think it's also Mariette said, the matchmaking part. I think that's some of the most important thing you can do if you have the privilege of zooming out. I think very often when it comes to young talent, and I understand why, because it's a part of education, there's quite a big navel-gazy process, and it's really important to look up and zoom out. And if you can't see or you don't know the field, then it's important to trust and ask other people that have that zoomed-out vision.
Mariette, you already spoke about House of Denim. I think this is a team of
I thought, let's take that picture. It also shows, because I think almost all of us here are part of a very privileged world, in a sense that we have access to either going to the Academy of Arts or whatever, but you have a whole group of talent who either studies at MBO, vocational level education. Since we don't have any entrance, like you can go to any school in Holland, it makes it for talent, if you study at MBO level, you're basically stuck with half of your class who wants to study fashion, and you want to really do something in fashion. So I think on one side, our government really gives everyone access to education. At the same time, it doesn't focus on how to get the best out of you. And so especially these ones are all examples of they will never go or can go to the Academy of Arts, although they might want to. So we developed a program called the House of Denim Talent Incubator Program for students who want to become the best in professional skills. So we offer them really everything to become the best they can be. And on the other side, on personal skills, because how to present yourself, how to be here and sitting in a panel, what's a really nice or a good-looking CV, how about a portfolio, it's work in progress your whole life, so you also have to learn this. And these are the skills you don't get. Last week I started, I really love it, is Rembrandt House in Amsterdam. He had this atelier there with his students. And I thought these talents don't have access to live model drawing. So I thought, can we do this over there? And they said, okay, why not? And I said, we're going to start a pilot, just see. And I want to ask the best fashion illustrators in Holland to give these students the opportunity to learn. So I asked Sjoukje Bierma, who's super famous in a newspaper, and Piet Paris, our most famous fashion illustrator. They both said yes. So they get training every week, half a day, and they learn how to first nude and then dressed, and then about fabric and about how do you do things with wool and how do you... So I love this. We're creating our own curriculum, which I feel that education should really have a benefit of it. Hey guys, it's not the same when I graduated at Artes in 89, but it seems they can learn a lot more. At the same time, we give them access to digital solutions. For example, with the laser, you can make all these super cool patterns, and you have a program called eDesigner. Okay, this is a license. I just ask this company in the middle, that's why I'm so happy smiling. I just asked them, hey guys, if you come, the company is Genealogia. They said, okay, we cannot afford it. We have the license, but I asked Guess Jeans, that's the other guy next to that, can you support this? And this is also something which should be possible in Holland to ask more companies, like why don't you support the talent? Yeah. Because right now it's a lot about funding. Yeah. That's the thing. This is what I really like, because you can see that everyone in the end is happy. They're happy because they have their innovation there.
And there's a very human side to it. Like funding, sure, but working with people, understanding each other as humans, and then collaborating.
True.
That's what I hear in this.
Yeah, this is also about sustainable partnerships. I believe in super long partnerships. If we go, we're married. So
yeah, that's really nice. And there's a lot to unpack here. And one thing I wanted to ask, and maybe this is a question to all of you as a panelist, like how do we look at design and talent compared to the more traditional academy world? Like, what's the difference there? 'Cause
I can answer this. It's got to do with self-esteem a lot. Because there's a lot of parents who say you have to go to uni, you have to do this, and already when you chose Academy of Arts and you study that, you're already on a different path. But at least it's HBO. It's okay. There's a certain connotation to it. They even tell you, oh, I'm level 4. I said, I don't even know what it means. If we would focus on what's actually talent and show it, I showed collaboration of only female talents with talent combined from Pakistan, because we work very international, at the biggest denim fabric trade show of the world, which is Kingpin Show in Amsterdam. People don't believe that these are the ones who are 19 years old and who can really do this, because they think you need this education. But I would love to have them study a lot more, but it's also studying and working at the same time. They have this intrinsic need of making things. And also, this is the thing, I hear you when you say, okay, they're navel staring, but it's also not, they have a talent and they tap into a talent. And if you see the talent, they are not marketing, they don't know how to sell, they don't know how to do, but they have this endless thing of creating. And if you give them the opportunity to create and the framework, because there's also a lot of people who want to, do me some of these talents and then we can do blah, blah. Treat people a lot. Like, yeah, and we think we help young people. You don't if you just pay the price. So I also explain, if they have big artists who want their items, I said, they have to pay. Okay, they can get it from Louis Vuitton or whatever, but you're not Louis Vuitton. So they just have to pay and they have the money. I always tell them, sending an invoice is an act of love. And they are like, really? But I said, I will help you. It's true, because then you at least trade something, which is also value. And then in the end, everyone is happy.
There's a big personal development story around becoming, from a talent, becoming a well-established professional. That's what I hear in your story.
And it's something you don't learn at school.
Yeah. Frank, I also see you nodding. You do not get this in school, so how do we support that?
I think it's difficult. I think I fully agree with you. It's not a part of the curriculum. And I think especially the fashion industry is something that's really rapidly changing all the time. So sometimes I'm even not sure if we should educate so much towards such an industry. But I do think in education we need more of a curriculum that you can maybe based on the talents or the interests of students, but more so because there's no time or money in most of education to actually change the curriculum. I think then what you sometimes get is a gap between students' expectations and then they step into this industry, this work field, and very often they're quite confused or, oh my God, what is this? And indeed what you're saying, there's a lot of focus on creativity, artistic sort of expression, which I completely agree with, but to establish a sustainable practice, you need so much more. It's community, it's network, it's entrepreneurship. You don't need to have that all yourself, but at least you need the people around you to support you in that sense. And I do think there's a huge responsibility within education with that saying there should be time and money for these educational institutions. The gap there is quite a big one. And I really believe in self-taught, because I think there's something more naturally for these talents that they gravitate towards something that is personal, that is not performative or has to do with this idea of, oh, I work in fashion. They do it because they love it. And a connection to what they do is much more authentic and stronger.
Maybe that should be present in almost every designer these days. You can also get distracted by the idea of working in fashion.
Yeah, and completely. And also working in fashion, the terminology we're using also here today is quite like container-based. There's so many meanings into what you can do in fashion. And also, we were just talking before the panel, you're trained in more than just designing and making garments. There's an eye you could ask money for, or a vision, or a network. But sometimes if you don't know that you can monetize these things, it can be difficult. And that is something that needs to be taught, I think. Especially if there's a mutual exchange between people, it's completely fine. But if there's an industry that wants to benefit from ideas without paying, then there's a problem. So I think awareness is really important.
Of creativity, and at some point it becomes empty. Yeah.
Exactly.
Tessa, I'm curious to hear your perspective. Like, how do you look at the Italian academies and the self-taught designers that might work with Lottozero?
That's really funny because I was just thinking when you said self-taught designers, and we don't really get that much. We usually get designers that have been either to the international schools, Italian schools that are also very good, or Italian professional schools, which are much more accessible, because privilege is a huge theme for Lottozero. We're a self-funded reality. We fund ourselves with our human capital. We pay ourselves peanuts. And we don't get any public funding for our work. We do European projects, but that obviously covers costs of projects. Our residencies are self-funded. So we only have 3 or 4 open calls where we fund the residency a year. So privilege is a huge theme for us, and we really don't want to be part of the problem all the time, at least. But one thing that I have to say that I see a little bit differently, because we get a lot of money for doing this education with the young designers. The problem I see, and even when we mentored designers that then went on to show at Paris Fashion Week, Copenhagen Fashion Week, got prizes, they went into burnout because it's not enough for them to know the things. And they're maybe very good marketers. One of them, I think, Laura, she was an amazing designer and her brand was going well, but then she couldn't find a business partner to manage the company, because who's going to do that for the amount of money that she can pay a business partner or a manager? So unless our governments, and I really think that all our governments, European governments, do that and help us find these, it could even be one manager for 3, for 4 designers, but unless we start doing this, we're just going to drive these designers crazy, and then they will just burn out and will ruin their talent instead of helping them.
Yeah.
About that, because you also in Italy had the Genius Group, which was also a group of companies, including Vivienne Westwood and Adriano Goldschmidt, etc. They worked together on all the things you could share, like from HR, finance, to all the things you could share. The funny thing is that I don't see a lot of, we had this in Holland as well, and it's not that successful because the people there should also be the right ones to do this. And then you see some brands who are there, they grow faster, and then it's okay, not equal anymore. But it sounds super logical. And I think the only really successful designers are the ones who have both creative and commercial, like really, because it's impossible, and you end up in a burnout, that's for sure.
I read this a lot in the industry, that it's such a high pressure, high pace environment. If you don't find that balance within the brand or within yourself, it becomes super challenging to survive.
Yeah, I always say to every designer who graduates, you are not your brand. So you have to find the right people around you, and also make mistakes sometimes too. It can be good for the first years, and then afterwards you have to make really difficult decisions. To say bye-bye to someone is not nice, but it's necessary to be able to grow your brand. Yeah. I think it's not that easy because they're actually in this bubble of creative people, so you never meet people who are not from your industry. That's why I also think, also from investor side, they have no clue. They're never in touch with each other, so it's a completely different tribe, which should meet each other to understand more about the dynamics, because you have a lot of people who are willing to invest but have no clue on the industry and don't take the time, because it takes a lot of time to establish a label.
Frank, want to add to that?
Yeah, I want to add we're in a humongous luxury in Holland because there is quite a lot of cultural funding still. And I think it does allow also to create a different type of practice that doesn't follow all the strict rules of an industry. And I'm not saying having your own practice is the way to go forward and have that work for the rest of your life. But I do think it's interesting that you are able to show a bigger diversity and a more critical approach to textiles. For example, one of our former talents just got into Rijksacademy in Amsterdam. That's fully her own talent and her own way of doing. But I do believe like platforms like New Order Fashion show people a different way of how you can work, so you don't need to follow those exact rules. You can determine this is the type of practice I'm going to do. I'm not going to make collections, I'm going to make this. I think it's about maybe daring to be more authentic and not follow these rules and determine your own practice. With that being said, that also indeed comes from privilege and having cultural funding, because otherwise it's impossible.
So we should be very grateful and thankful for the fact that we can do these types of programs here at Dutch Design Week, and that we can do artistic research where there might not need to be an end goal. You can just explore in that sense. I very much agree and recognize that. Maybe the question that I had was, how do we connect the two worlds? We have the creatives, we have the designers, and then we have the investors and the business side of things. Those worlds, to me, it feels like there's a gap. Can we agree on that first? Yeah.
There is a gap, but I thought you were going to ask something else.
Okay, what was
which is also
yeah.
Can I just, no, because one really cool thing that somebody said to me, actually our neighbor at the Dutch Design Week in the Klookgebouw, she's one of your alumni, I think, of New Order of Fashion. She told me that she studied here at the Academy in Eindhoven and then did 1 semester in the Politecnico in Milan. And she said this was the perfect mix for her to have both the crazy Eindhoven vibe where you just create, and then in the Politecnico maybe more of a structured approach. And I think that would be so interesting if all students had to do 1 semester abroad in a school that is entirely different from yours. Any semester abroad is amazing, and I hope people can do it. Well, there's a lot of Erasmus funding for that, so hopefully people are doing it. But this mix between the business side and the creative, crazy side, I really thought it was interesting when she told me, and for her it was like it's life-changing. She's doing the knit sweaters.
Ioana.
Thank
Ioana.
you. I'm so sorry. I'm already bad with names. These last days, I've met so many people.
Yeah. We've also met a lot of people. That is an example of how it can work.
Yeah, but it's really hard because I really think government needs to step in with funding for hubs to hire these people. If we could have enough money to hire a person and then manage that person, I understand how the Genius didn't work, but if we as hubs had the money to hire the person to then manage these brands.
Or have access to trainings that we can maybe become the person.
Do you have time to be that person?
Oh, not yet. I have to do this stuff.
No, I think it needs to be someone that we hire and we even steal from other industries and then we pay them whatever they would make in another industry and have them manage our people, because I have the knowledge, but I can't manage everyone. I don't have time. I'm managing my own business.
Yeah, and also what Frank said, like the authentic part of ourselves, like being creative or being more structured, that's, of course, you cannot learn everything.
I'm business and economics.
Your business and economics. And we can shake hands on that. Oh, that's right. We have to keep it running. We have to make sure that the light gets turned on every day and that people can actually come in.
On the practical side, I'm not sure what you mean zooming out. I think it's much more maybe a thing of breaking down some myths that have been built up in fashion, which I think is still, it's very much about the creative genius, the one person, the one-man army. If we break down that idea and show how much of a collective and collaborative practice it is, I think people will be much more curious about the different facets of it. That will cause less confusion and a clear sort of goal or mindset what to do. So yeah, I think a cultural shift, but now that's really easy to say because it will take years and years, not even now, maybe even decades. But I do think there are different counter movements already coming up. That's what I mostly hope for. Yeah.
Acknowledging that your practice has been built up over many different chapters, different locations, different mentors, different...
Completely, yeah. And you might be a face, but if it's all put on one person, one face, it can become very heavy. And I think we've also seen in New Orders and people that have done incredibly well, but at some point just snap because it's too difficult. Yeah. And I think if they understand from the beginning that it is indeed like a collaborative effort, and I think it will make a difference.
Acknowledge this support structure, and that helps not to identify too much with the brand, as Mariette said.
I think especially in different countries, specifically in Holland, commerce is often frowned upon. And I think arts and commerce, like it is a marriage, it's really important. And I think every marriage can have a different balance in that sense. But I think it's really important that we become more aware of that. As long as we deny that, you're just going to have beautiful practices, but very short-lived.
If you go to Belgium, they have koop Belgisch. We don't buy Dutch designers. So we're not supporting the ones in which we think they should be able to make a bit. Maybe we should save some money and support your local designers much more. I think you can keep it for life. If you buy design and it's good design, you can wear it a super long time. And that's very much a different mindset, but we don't have it. In Copenhagen or Denmark, people are supporting the fashion industry. Here in Holland, it's seen as, okay, we have fashion. We should be proud of these talented ones, but we don't buy it. I always start my talk with, what are you actually wearing? Because then we know, okay, what are you actually supporting or not supporting? And I think a lot of time people don't realize that they're not buying anything from these people in which they say they should be able to make a living. Okay, that's an easy one. So for me, it's about turning talent into business. I want them to be able to make a living out of it next to working as either a teacher or whatever they do, a barista, I don't mind. No one starts a business just by being an entrepreneur from day one. It takes 10 years to become something you might want to do, and that's also the path you should take instead of the instant. It seems like everyone is successful from day one.
But many years have gone into that becoming successful. It's also the culture, of course, where we believe I can be successful next year. I'm just going to dedicate 1 year, and then if it doesn't work, I'm going to be broken emotionally because I failed. There's still some time for the audience to ask some questions. I'm really enjoying a conversation, but I can understand there might be some people that are curious, that want to ask about specific examples.
Can you say your name and what you do?
Hi, my name is Alice. I design and develop textile tools for textile designers, especially smaller ateliers. And I was curious to hear your opinion on, there was this discussion about connecting designers to managers who can do the negotiation. I recently had an interview with the head of product development at Nike, and there they explained that in their system, they have a whole team dedicated to the negotiations, connecting the vision and ideas of all the fashion designers there to the production side of things, to the commercial side of things. I was wondering, is a mismatch once you're out of the education system that people aren't able to connect with each other, or have a institution that is able to connect between the fashion designers and then the fashion management people, and creating a system for it? Is there something like, of course, House of Denim does?
No, but I think Amphi is a better example, because you have Amsterdam Fashion Institute. They have 3 pillars. One is fashion design, one is fashion branding, and fashion management. Already at school, it seems like 3 different tribes. They really try to mix these by doing collections together or working together. But the funny thing is, especially because I'm a creativist background as well, you're only focused on what you want to do. You're not so interested in the vision of that person who thinks, but you want to get your thing done. I also feel like these 4 years you have right now, I studied 5 years. In 4 years, you have to graduate and get your vision out there, and it's not enough time. I would love to have post-HBO-like things on business, because they have all these alumni. It's super fun to get all these people together. Half a year after you graduated, you're out of your bubble and you think, oh shit, I have to make money and I have big debts with my family and I don't know what to do anymore. They're already in a burnout. Then it actually starts. So it's also fun to do this a little bit later. I did this a lot for Lichting at the beginning. No one was interested. They were just like, yeah, I'm going to go to Paris and New York and do a show. So I was like, okay, when you come back on Earth, we can discuss what can be done. And everyone has the same question. But I'm looking for this commercial person who can pay every... that's not possible. You also have to put effort into something. And right now I focus on much more younger labels, which is a group which is not so much at the Academy of Arts. It's more ready to wear, streetwear, urban wear, like the young, they are really successful, but they have to go from startup to scale up. And then you need investors. They are much more at ease with investors because they don't have the Academy of Arts' background. And at the same time, they have the struggle on finding investors for longer term. And in Holland, we don't have a lot of impact investors. But in certain other countries, they understand it takes longer. For example, Tess van Zalingen has a label 10 years. I have a huge amount of respect for her because she's working with Babette, who's taking care of that. It's not like I go to the supermarket and get me one. It's okay, you develop a relationship and then this person is able to get collaborations or all these things which can actually make money. Because most of the labels, also the big ones, they exist because of the perfume and the collaborations.
I'm really not a fan of pitching to investors because I think there is a huge gender divide. I'm a mentor on many projects and I've seen the same exact idea pitched by a woman very well, got nothing. The bad copy of it, pitched by a man, got millions. I really don't like the whole pitching scene. I think it's just male-dominated. I don't even think that if we had more female investors, it would change much. So I'm not a huge fan. There's all Italian fashion managers in them working for, they make 5,000 a month net, plus 13, 14 months. What young designer can afford that kind of... I think a lot of them would love to work for these small brands, but then they see, okay, this brand is paying me 1,800.
Yeah, but I always say I don't do anything with anyone who doesn't give something back. So I just ask them for, you can come half a day a week. You can come 3 days a month. Should not be a problem. It's also most of the time part of the program. And they work for big companies. You have to do something for whatever. You can do it for elderly people or you can do it for young designers. So I always try to find a way to get... I just want them to open up to for you to understand the way they think and also to not get into the trap of these things, because I'm not a fan of all these investors at all. But there's also good examples. So I like it when they can talk to someone and just ask any question, because you should be able to ask anything.
Yeah. We have room for one, maybe two more questions, and then we'll already have to go to closing down the talk for today. Go ahead, Koen.
Hi, I'm Koen Giese. I'm in the material and textile innovation industry. And like going back on the question of Alice when she said she had an interview with the head of Nike and he said there was a whole team for economic choices. And you also said that in Amphi there is like different channels of the creative industry. Like we keep talking about, oh, there should be a creative side and an economic side. But there's also so many facets in the economic business, so many facets in the artistic business. Yeah, how do you think that, or how have you experienced that businesses normally grow? For example, does it start with one into kind of the artistic side, one into the economic side? Does that become two artists and then one economic? Yeah. Is there really a purely artistic person and an economic person?
No, this is why I have an issue with how funding in Holland is done. We have an economic department and culture doesn't seem to make to have to make any business, and the economic side doesn't need any creativity. We need a lot of creativity on the economic side, and on the cultural side would be really nice that we could be able to run a business for sure. This is because of all these silos we created. We even have it in cities. I spoke yesterday to someone who's partly in West Amsterdam West, responsible for entrepreneurship. I'm like, what is this? We are a super small global village. The moment a designer gets commercial, funding stops. We kept Victor and Rolf for 12 years because they have access to funding. And otherwise you don't. The moment it becomes successful, you might need to support them. But what we don't ask with the funding, and this is what I don't like, you should be able to share all your knowledge with the next generation. So it is about educating the next generation. It's not just an exhibition, it's about what actually knowledge could you share. I think the tech industry is very interesting in that sense, that they are so open, it's open source. They have the business models in place and then they can open up to anyone and then you have free access. With fashion, you don't have this. I think it's interesting if you work in material, you don't get this at school.
Yeah, I do think we have to round off our conversation for this morning. If there's one thing you would want to give young designers in a few sentences, how can they learn from what we discussed today?
Relationships. Yeah. Connections. I always say this, in the world of AI, the only thing we have is our human connections. So keep them tight, talk to them, invite them. That's it.
That's a good one.
I think I agree. I think on a slightly different level, I think relationality, both in relation to humans, non-humans, material. I think that's extremely important to keep ourselves training and staying aware of our relations. Yeah.
Connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get married.
Yeah, I always say, create beauty and kick ass. That's what we have to. You're here to create beauty, really. We are here on this planet. We have to create beauty. Yeah. And then you can only do this by kicking ass, because otherwise it's not going to happen.
Can I have a warm applause for my panelists, please? Tessa, Frank, Mariette. That leaves me with thanking our partners for today. So a special thanks to our panelists and everyone else that made this program possible here today. And a special mention to AV Partners for organizing the live stream so people could also tune in online. I've been your host, Haiko, and have a great rest of this lovely Saturday here at Dutch Design Week. Thank you.